question 8. Okay, now in this question, the person asks us that a student has been the victim of a phishing scam. Please take note of that. Explain what is meant by the term vishing. Now, vishing is a form of phishing. So, but this time around, the emphasis is on the letter V for voice mail or voice message. So, explain what is meant. So, when the keyword here is explain, so you need to explain that what vishing is actually is. So, I start by writing what vishing is here. So, vishing is a fraudulent practice of making voice call or phone calls or using voice messages. So, let me write that so that it will be easier for you to understand. Vishing is a fraudulent of making phone calls. Emphasis on phone calls or voice call or using voice message. Emphasis on that. Then you can also add that the caller pretends to be from a reputable company. That's so tricking the victim into revealing their personal data, revealing their personal information or data. You can also add that it is a practice of using voicemail or voice over internet protocol, or it's a form of phone call phishing, like I said earlier. So any of these is correct. So since the question is a 2-mark question, so any 2 points from here will earn you the full mark. So take note of that. Then the next one is describe. Emphasis on describe. Please take note of that. Describe. So, and as you are describing, you are only giving 2 methods. 2 methods that help to prevent vishing. So prevention of vishing, you should describe any 2 methods. So in describing this, let me put it down here. So all the precautions you need to take is you never give out personal information to the caller. Take note of that. You should alert your bank or company on a known number. Please take note of that. Then you can also hang up the call the moment you notice something suspicious, so that you can do your own investigation before you go ahead with that conversation. You can also block the number that has contacted you, or you can as well don't answer at all. Don't answer the call, especially if you have a technology on your phone that alerts you or brings that this is a fraudulent call. So if you do not recognize the caller or the number, so any of these, so you can pick any 2 points here to answer this question. So please take note of this. Any 2 points here is valid, and like I said in other videos, please take note when the question comes this way and you have been given just 2 points to write, so you are supposed to write the 2 points. So it's because I'm making correction, that's why I'm trying to write more than 2 points. So you could have left it just this way. You could have left it just this way and then just leave 2 points there. Okay, maybe just like this, and it will be fine. Okay, since it has been numbered, so this is the way the examiner will assess your work. It has been numbered, so you give it 0.1, 0.2, just like this, and you'll be fine. So take note of that. Then the next one is question 9 is compare. The word compare is an action word, it's a command word, compare. So take note of that. Compare a test strategy with a test plan. So whenever you want to carry out a test plan after you have successfully created a new ICT solution, you need to test the solution. So what you can write to earn the full mark. Don't forget the full mark is 6 marks here. So let's go to question 10. Question 10 says that a form tutor at Tawara School is producing a database about the students in his class. So this is a scenario printed. Take note of that. Then when the database is completed, it needs to be verified. After completion, take note of that, it needs to be verified. So explain the importance of visual verification. In this kind of question, you need to know what verification is. We have different type of verification techniques. So we have visual check, we have our visual verification, and we have double data entry. So those are the things you need to understand. But this question is asking, explain the importance of visually verifying the data. So we need to understand that. So then for that, I'll write that visual verification prevents error. Visual verification prevents errors whenever data is being copied from one medium to another, because you are visually checking what you're typing against the source document. So it prevents the error that can be committed either intentionally or unintentionally. So that is the essence of visual verification or visual check. Then another thing you can also do is that it compares the data. Like I said, it compares the data being copied against the original, because you are using the source document to compare with what you are putting into the other medium. Another thing is that if a second person carries out, for visual verification, if a second person carries out the checking, then it ensures errors are not missed. So those are the things that you can say to earn the 2 marks for this question. So the next question is B. Question 10B. An example of the date of birth stored on the database described above is 15/05/2009. So describe 3 validation checks that could be carried out on the date of birth. So the first thing you look at this format of this date. So you can use format check. And remember the way the question comes, I want you to pay attention to that. Describe it. You don't just mention it and describe it. Describe 3 validation checks that could be carried out on the date of birth. Describe 3 validation checks. So now look at it. The question has been given 6 marks. So that means for you to earn the 6 marks, you need to mention the validation check, describe it, 3 of them, so then you earn the full 6 marks. So you could talk about format check because date follows a particular format, that is 15/05/2009. So that means this is a format of DD, MM, YYYY. So that is, you can give example of that. So we could say the first one is format check. And what's the explanation of that? It checks that the date format is DD/MM/YYY. So that one is done. Another one that can be done is that since we are talking about date, now since we are talking about date of birth of tutees in that, our students in that form tutors class, then it could have range of date that, oh, the expected students in that class should have their date of birth between so so and so so date. So you could use range check. So that could be another one. So I'm going to write range check, and the explanation will be month ranges from 01 to 12. You could do that, or day ranges from 01 to 31. You can see from the example, look at it. So they actually wanted you to say that the month, since if this is month, 05 is month, so that means from 01 to 12, 2 characters for the month and 2 different characters for the day, from 01 to 31, so as the case may be. So that's an example. Another one that you can also use, you can actually use length check. Now what will that do? Exactly, count the length of the data as an example. So let's count from 1, 2, this slash 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is exactly 10 characters. And if you also actually want to count without the slashes, you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have exactly 8 characters or 10 characters as the case may be. So we can actually use that as length check. So you could say the explanation will be the date has exactly 8 character, 8 or 10 characters as the case may be, 8 characters. And if you prefer to choose, you can prefer to choose 10 characters. So take note of that, 10 characters. So it has to be consistent. Another one you can also use is that you can make use of type check. Type check can also work. Why will type check work? Because it's saying that all the data there are numbers or numeric. So that is another validation check that can be used. So let me just include that you can actually use type check, and the explanation will be that the characters are all numbers. So any way from this explanation will earn you the full mark of 6, and that is what we just explained there. So let's go to the next question. The next question is question 11, and I want you to really pay attention to this. More people use desktop computers, so emphasis on desktop computers rather than tablet computers. Under emphasis, tablet computers when working at home. You can see that. So discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using desktop computers rather than tablet computers for doing work at home. So you can see the way I brought out my emphasis, and don't forget also the advantages and the disadvantages. So these two are very important. The next thing you need to consider is what is the mark allotted to it. This is 6-mark question, so that means you might be writing 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages, talking about the using desktop computers rather than tablets for doing work at home. That is very important. So the advantages of using desktop computers rather than tablets. So we can write the advantages as, so like I said, you can make it 3, 3, 4, 2, or 2, 4 as the case may be. So I write for the advantages. So let's write. So you could say one major advantage is that peripherals are separate, so that makes it easier to customize to users' need. That's the advantage of using a desktop computer, because you could decide to use an ergonomic keyboard or an ergonomic mouse instead of, if it is a tablet, everything is attached together in a tablet, in a single unit. So that's an advantage. So you could say for desktop computers, peripherals are separate. Okay, good. Therefore, it is easier to customize to users' specific need. So that is one. Also, you can say that it is connected to the mains electricity. So you need to be careful if you want to write this particular option as an answer. Therefore, no battery issues. No battery issues. You can't just stop at it is connected to the mains electricity as an advantage. You have to tell us what's the benefit of doing that. So you can't have battery issues because of that. Then another thing you can say is that it is more expandable. That is the benefit of using a desktop computer. It has different ports that you can attach different peripherals to it, so you can easily expand it. So then it has a larger screen, which makes it easier to read document. If you want to read document, okay, it has a larger screen, which makes it easier to read the document. Okay, another thing you can say is that it has a larger keyboard, which makes it easier to enter data. That's a larger keyboard, which makes it easier to enter data, or even to make it easier to make fewer errors. You know, the larger the keyboard, the fewer errors you probably will make typing in your data. So all these, you can pick any of these as any three as advantages. Then if you go to disadvantages of using desktop rather than tablets, you can say that the disadvantages will be that it is more difficult to move around, because your desktop computer will be, you know, connected together in a fixed position, so mobility is not there, you know. Or so take note of that. So you can also say that it has a larger footprint. So having a larger footprint, desktop computer has a larger footprint. So what does this mean? It means that it occupies a larger space, you know, so that's an advantage. But if it's a tablet computer, it is so portable, it's so small that you can even tuck it in your bag or put it on your shelf and all that. But then a desktop computer occupies a much larger space. That is the meaning of desktop computer has a larger footprint. So that's a disadvantage. Also, the desktop computer has trailing leads, therefore can be a safety issue, because you have to physically connect the cables, wires of the peripherals together into the system unit. So that's an issue. It has trailing, which leads that can be a safety issue. Then you can also say that if there is a power outage, the unit will lose power instantly. So that's another issue with using power outage of using desktop. If there is a power outage, the unit will lose power instantly, whereas the tablet may operate on battery. Okay, good. So these and many more are valid points that you can include in your answer to that particular question. So let's go to question 11b and see what the question is saying. Desktop computers use input and output devices. Stage 2 input devices. Take note, emphasis on input and output devices. Then stage 2 input devices that can be used in a desktop for working at home. Please take note, that can be used. So we can start by writing, of course, the keyboard, the mouse. Now I told you earlier that when the response space is numbered like this, so emphasis should be that you have to answer it accordingly. But because I'm making some suggested answers, I may need to increase the numbers so that you have various options. So it could also be touch screens, and then it could be scanners, it could be microphones that you can use to turn, and so on and so forth. So then the next question is stage 2 output devices that can be used in a desktop for working at home. Okay, then that could be that printer, of course. You need to print, printer, your monitor, okay, your monitor, or you could project it, your projector. It could be speakers or headphones, etc. So take note of that. Then the next question is question 12. Let's see what the question says. It says that describe, emphasis on describe, how the data is stored and managed. How it is data is stored and managed when using cloud computing. You can see that describe. So whatever response we're giving, we are describing how data is stored and managed, when using cloud computing. So how data is stored, how it is being managed. So now let's go. We can add that data gets stored on remote servers. In fact, that is the brain behind cloud computing or cloud storage. So data will be stored on remote servers, which can be accessed by the cloud within data centers. Take note of that. So you say data is stored on remote servers. Now the word remote means that it may not be physically present with you, but then they are physically present somewhere else, maybe with the third party or the company you are storing your data on their technology. So but to you, that is remote to you. So data is stored on remote servers which are accessed by the cloud, within data center. Another thing you can add is that the server is leased or rented, maybe, or given out to the user, or monthly subscription. Okay, good. Then a user data is stored in logical pools. We are talking about how data is stored and how it is managed. So take note of that. The user's data is stored in logical pools. So take note of that. Then we are talking about how it can be stored. Then let's go to how the data can be managed. So you can pick that also. How data can be managed is that the data is usually managed by a third party cloud provider. Okay, then the next thing is that cloud service provider manage and maintain it. So now if you want to increase the usage, then you'll be billed accordingly. So the usage can be increased or decreased, and the customer pays for that. So take note of that. So you can pick this to earn the full mark. This is a 4-mark question, so you could pick 2 for how the data is stored, 2 for how it is being managed. Take note of that. Then question 13 is talking about smart devices and microprocessors can monitor and control devices in the home. They can monitor keyword smart devices. These are devices that have microcontroller or microprocessor in them, and they can monitor and control devices in the home. Describe. So you describe, then you give examples. Giving examples. Negative effect of using smart devices. Please take note of that, especially in the home. Emphasis in the home. So you are giving the negative effect, then you give examples. They could also ask you to give positive effect. So now we start. The device, smart devices can prevent user from leaving the home, thereby no much movement that will keep them physically fit or mentally alert. So then another thing is that use of these devices leads to the user becoming lazy, the prolonged use or over reliance on it reliance on these devices can lead to user becoming obese. Then the device using the devices can affect the well-being or mental health of users. It can also lead to de-skilling. De-skilling means that user can lose household skills because they now rely on all these smart devices in the home. Then it could lead to false alarms. You understand? So these and many more are some of the negative effects of using these smart devices, and you realize that I actually explain that when the question says give examples, you have to give example like becoming lazy, like becoming obese, like affecting the mental health, and so on and so forth. Please take note of that. So any 4 points there will earn you the full mark. So then the next question is question 14. Question 14. A style sheet for a website can contain both styles and classes. You know that under style sheets, and web authoring, a style sheet for a website can contain both styles and classes. So explain the differences between a style and a class. Differences. So take note of that. How many marks is allotted to this question? 3 marks. So explain the differences. So you could also write that class definition starts with a full stop or period. For example, if you want to name a class in your style sheet, so you could, for example, you could call it dot exam. So that's a class. It has to start with a period or a full stop. That's the meaning, for example. Then another thing is that a class is used for adding or changing a style. Take note of that. A class is used for adding or modifying a style within CSS. Classes are subtypes. That's one thing you need to know. There are subtypes within an element. So a class will affect a particular element. You know, a style can actually affect a particular element or the overall web page. Okay, good. But then a class is a subtype that affects an element directly. So then classes are also user defined. That is very important. Classes are classes are user defined. So you give it a name yourself, they are user defined, whereas a style is predefined. Predefined means that a style that you want to use, you know, the specification of the style or the elements, the parameters, the properties you want to call are already available. So but then you can modify, you can, you know, the styles. Okay, but classes are usually user defined. Then another thing you need to take note is that classes are defined in a style sheet, whereas styles are defined in the head section of the web page. You know this very well. Okay, then in the head section of the web page, and so many other, you know, differences that you can give. So any three valid difference will earn you the full mark of 3, as we have it in this question. So then question 14b, state the web development layer. State the web development layer where the style sheet is used, and that is presentation layer. You know, we actually have different layers. We have content layer, presentation layer, and a behavioral layer under web development layers. So we have 3. So but for style sheet is used in the presentation layer. Presentation layers. So take note of that. Presentation layer. That's where style sheet is used. But the HTML codes are used or written within the word content layer, and then scripting is done within the behavioral layer. Take note of that. Then the next one is question 15. The audience needs to be considered when creating an ICT solution. Anytime you want to create an ICT solution, you need to know who your target audience are. Okay, good. So whenever you want to do that, so that would determine, you know, how the kind of aesthetics you're going to add to that solution, how the user interface will be friendly and easily understandable by your audience. So describe what factors need to be considered for the age of the audience. Describe, that's the keyword, the command word there. Describe factors to be considered for the age, you know, for you to have an age appropriate solution, you know, so you need to consider that. So the younger the audience, the more images rather than text. You know that, you know, for younger audience to, you know, arrest their attention and sustain their attention, to make it, you know, to find the solution easy to use, fun and interesting, you have to use a lot of catchy images and less of text. So that is one thing you need to let me write that so that you understand the explanation better. So the younger the audience, prefers more images rather than text. Another thing is that they prefer larger fonts or text, and they also they prefer bright colors for your content. Whereas the older audience, because we are talking about age appropriate content, so whereas the older audience prefers more formal language, and then more formal font type and size. So take note of all these differences for different kind of audiences in terms of age. So then the next question is question 15b. Describe what factors need to be considered for the interest of the audience. So if you want to boost the interest of the audience in the solution, what are those things that factors that can boost the interest of your audience? Okay, so we say, you can say precise content, precise or correct content. So what they want in the content of the solution should be so precise. Then the language or tone used needs to be appropriate. Should be appropriate for the audience. Also, you have to have respect for the audience. There are some statements, there are some words, there are some symbols that shouldn't be used depending on the audience, because your audience will come from different tradition, from different background, religious beliefs, cultural beliefs and all that. So you need to respect the audience. Then another thing is that you need to use right video or images, correct use of video or multimedia content. Multimedia, that is image, audio, video. Okay, good. Then you should consider the complexity of the content. Complexity of the content. So it shouldn't be too complex for them. You understand, for the type of audience you are for that solution. So any 2 points here will earn you the full marks. Then the next question is question 16. Question 16. Now state 4. Just state, okay, 4 characteristics of spam emails. The keyword here is spam emails. So you need to understand that. So spamming is the act of sending unsolicited mails or information or messages to people, unsolicited, and you are just sending that to just give them more than what they want, just to confuse them when they have not even asked for it. So that is what spamming is all about. So, and it is sent in bulk so that their inbox will be unnecessarily filled up with jargon. So What are the characteristics when you know that this is a spam email? Number one, usually the emails are unsolicited. Another thing, that they are usually sent in bulk. Another thing is that you can know them, they are usually sent by bots, like robots, and the email is not personalized. That's another thing. So you know that it was just an email that was sent to a lot of people. They are not personalized specifically to send to one recipient. So you need to know. And don't forget, state 4 characteristics of spam email. Also, you need to say that may ask you to buy something, or to give your password, or to click on a link. So you can also add those ones to that. So another thing is that they may have a spelling or grammar error. So I could add that, like I told you earlier, that when the responses are numbered this way, you just have to write it that way. But because I'm making a suggested answer, so I'll just add this, that they may ask you to click on a link. Such emails may contain links that require the recipient to click on, and so on and so forth. They may ask you to give password or personal information, etc. So the next question is question 16b. Question 16b, and I think that's the last question in this paper. Give 2 ways of reducing spam emails. Now that we understand what spams are, or spam emails are, so what are the ways by which we can reduce the effects? Okay, then you need to know that you don't just post your email addresses anywhere on social media, especially. Okay, so let me write that here. Do not post your email address on public websites and social media. Okay, then always don't click links in the spam email. You can also make use spam filter. Use spam filter. You can also block the sender. That's another thing you can do. You can do not click links in the spam emails, and so on and so forth. So you can also untick the box allowing your email to be used for marketing purposes. So, or you do not reply to spam emails. That's another thing. The moment you reply, you have activated a thread of conversation. So you don't do that, so that you will not be sent spam in the future. So that is very important. And with this, we have come to the end of this question, and then you see how we can answer the question systematically. You can actually do well in theory, just as it is possible with practical papers. So I've come to the end of this video. Please share this video with other people, like it, drop your comments, or if you have contributions or questions, drop it in the comment section. Then subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you in the next video. Thank you. Bye for now.